Welcome to On-Demand Instructions video on Literature Standard 5. We will discuss how an author creates mystery, tension, or surprise. We will be covering the core standards in literature, analyze how an author's choices concerning how to structure a text, order events within it, and manipulate time create such effects as mystery, tension, or surprise. This session's goals are to analyze an author's choices on structuring text, how to order events within a text, manipulate time with pacing and flashbacks, create mystery, tension, or surprise. Let's start with what you already might know about this subject by answering these questions. How does an author's choice affect text structure? How does an author order events within a text? How does an author create tension, mystery, or surprise? Writers use a variety of text structures. Identifying the structure of a text will help the reader read efficiently. Readers can use different comprehension strategies that fit in a particular text based on the reader's knowledge of how the information is organized. When a reader understands the text structure, they can anticipate what information will be revealed in the text. Understanding the pattern of the text will help the reader organize ideas for synthesizing and summarizing. Let's go over some of those text structures. Chronological articles show events in a sequence from beginning to end. Words that show a chronological structure include first, then, next, finally, and specific dates and times. The text describes events and identifies or implies causal factors. The text introduces and describes a problem and presents solutions. Authors use comparisons to describe ideas to readers. Similes, metaphors, and analogies are used in compare-contrast organizational structures. Sensory details help readers to visualize information. One way to order the events within a plot is by writing a parallel plot. In a parallel plot, each main character has a separate but related storyline that merges in the end. For example, murderer and detective, old enemies, rivals for a job, two people with opposite goals. In the plot outline, the first section is about main character 1. The story will then move on to main character 2. The plot alternates between the two characters until they come together in the end. Each character has equal parts in the plot. Each segment of the story moves the plot forward in time. The scenes may overlap from time to time, but will generally progress forward. In the parallel plot, the characters may start out together and separate to their own paths, or they may not get together until the end. But their storylines are related, and the climax occurs when the two come together in the end. Parallel plots may have more than two main characters. Each character's story gets equal time to keep the plot moving forward. When each main character is introduced, the plot should return to the first character and the cycle is repeated. Examples of parallel plots with multiple main characters are school reunions, natural disasters, or terrorist attacks. Another way to order the plot is by time manipulation. In reality, time goes in a straight line from sunup to sundown. Manipulation of time occurs when the writer changes the pattern for artistic reasons, such as a flashback or flash forward. A flashback is when the action in Chapter 2 precedes the action in Chapter 1. A flash forward is when the writer wants the reader to know about something in the future before continuing the story. A good example of this is in the book Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. In the opening paragraph, the heroine says that the previous night she dreamed of Manderley. But the rest of the book tells the reader that this was basically a nightmare and takes the reader back to the beginning. This is a manipulation of time. Using these methods helps an author to create such effects as mystery, tension, or surprise. The author's choice is important because it makes the plot more interesting. Authors use different techniques to keep the plot interesting to the reader and to create mystery, tension, or surprise. An example of a parallel plot is the book Chromosome 6 by Robin Cook. A group in the medical examiner's office in New York tries to figure out why a murdered mobster's body was taken from the morgue and mutilated. The group from the medical examiner's office follows clue after clue to try to figure out the mystery. At the same time, a genetic scientist, a nurse, a reproductive technician in Africa try to solve the mystery of rising smoke from an ape habitat. The story goes back and forth between the two groups until near the end of the novel, when the two groups meet. The story comes to a climax, and the crisis is resolved. This is only a partial analysis. Read the entire book for the entire plot at this website. An example of a flashback is the book Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. The main character, Guy Montag, remembers the day when he met Professor Faber in the park. Montag recalls how strangely he acted before and after their encounter. He also remembers how Faber gave his name and address on a slip of paper while he was telling Montag that he could turn him in if he wanted. Again, this is only a partial analysis. Read the full book for a full analysis of the plot at this website. Let's do an activity to further enhance your skills. Read the following short story, Marmalade, by Sonia Cheel at this website. Skim the story. After scanning the text, how do you think the author organized the information? Which framework did this author use to organize the information? Chronological, cause-effect, problem-solution, compare-contrast, description, directions? Does the author use a combination of structures? How can these writing techniques be used? Authors frequently use flashbacks, flash-forwards, and parallel plots to spice up a story. A story, no matter how interesting, can suffer if told in a straight line with no foreshadowing or mysteries being created. Where can these techniques be found in literature? Examples of parallel plots can be found in Madame Bovary and The Great Gatsby. Example of flash-forwards can be found in author Arthur Koestler's Darkness at Noon and J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Examples of flashbacks can be found in The Giver by Lois Lowry and Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. As a student, you're expected to know how to recognize what techniques an author uses to create mystery, tension, or surprise. We've come to the end of our session. We have discussed analyzing an author's choices on structuring text, how to order events within a text, manipulating time with pacing and flashbacks, creating mystery, tension, or surprise. To learn more, go to these websites for additional information. Return to www.ondemandinstruction.com for more instructional videos, podcasts, and materials. We update the site weekly.